Welcome back to day 10 of the Drive-In Exploitation Challenge for April 2018. I got in I got in 4 films. First up, I've got around to watching this real cheap drive-in double feature from Elite Entertainment. I've had this disc, my gosh, I've had this disc for 15, 20 years, I think. Based on the 2003, so yeah, cheap. And of course you can pick up these releases. This is I Bury the Living, Richard Boone, and The Hand, 1960. I think these are, I think I Bury the Living has gotten a Blu-ray treatment. Anyway, first up is The Hand, 1960 film directed by Henry Cass. Now, Henry Cass is an interesting English director because he directed one of my favorite Gothic horror films, and that's Blood of the Vampire. It's a little slow and talky, but I enjoy it. Recommend that to anybody that likes Hammer films. As far as The Hand, this is almost like a crimey Edgar Wallace type film more than a horror movie. It begins very engagingly about the Burma campaign and a English soldier that's hand gets chopped off and trying to obtain information from military information. And then the film forwards to wartime London, and now we get into this potboiler. Criminal investigation, looking for a guy who lost his hand, and it becomes really kind of gets bogged down in some uninteresting details, which is a shame because it certainly had an interesting premise and an engaging first 5 minutes. Didn't make a lot of sense. It wasn't a bad film, but it just kind of lost me. In the middle of all the whodunit and all the discussions about it, the acting was wooden and just not very engaging. So it's probably one of those one-time watches for me. That's The Hand, 1960. I give it a 4 out of 10. Next up, much better film, and that is I Bury the Living, starring Richard Boone. And for those of you that don't know who Richard Boone is, he was in Have Gun Will Travel TV series, Western TV series, and then one of my favorite films he was in, and it came out. I was a kid and watched it on TV. The Last Dinosaur. Love that movie. He was a big game dinosaur hunter. It was hilarious. Great movie if you've never seen. Last Dinosaur, highly recommend it. Boone also, interestingly enough, provided the voice of the dragon Smaug in the 1977 animated film of Tolkien's The Hobbit. I didn't know that either. So back to this film. He plays, Richard Boone in this film plays a cemetery, I guess an undertaker, caretaker, or he's really the chairman, I guess, of a committee that oversees this large cemetery. And overseeing this cemetery, he stumbles upon this map with black pens placed certain places on the map. A long story short is this map. The use of this map and where you place those pins can dictate when people die, and so Richard Boone gets embroiled in this paranormal type situation with people dying off prematurely because he stuck a pin in a map. It's a good film. It's a fun film. It was directed by Albert Band. Now Albert Band's the father of Charles Band and film composer Richard Band. Everybody should know those two guys. But Albert besides doing I Bury the Living, he did The Young Guns. He was a producer on that, and he did Dracula's Dog, 1978, and he also was executive producer on Metal Storm: The Destruction of Jared Sin. So he's done quite a bit of stuff. Ghoulies too, things like that. So that'll do it for those two films. And next up, I broke into my drive-in cult classics 32 movie collection. Now, a lot of these movies are duplicated, and these are public domain type films that you'll see in these multi-packs. I mean, there's a lot of overlap. If you buy these multi-packs, you tend to get the same film over and over and over. Like I've got like The Hearse, which actually got a Blu-ray release from Vinegar Syndrome. I've got that, I don't know, 20 damn times. Creeping Terror, things like that. Malibu Beach. The Christopher Lee, Donald Pleasance film in here, Land of the Minotaur. That's always in these multi-packs. Blood Mania is another one. So, yeah. But, so I started on disc 1. And I watched, first up was The Pickup, 1975. Now, The Pickup is, it was the only film feature directed by this guy named Hutchison, who was also an advertising man and documentary filmmaker. It was produced and directed by Crown International, which did, I think, all of these public domain films. Essentially, the storyline centers around two young women who were picked up after they were hitchhiking, and then they disappear into the forest of Everglades, where they have this, I don't know, hippie-like induced trips. It's very much, it's a product of the late 60s, early 70s kind of free love hippie movement. It's supposed to be kind of a psychedelic art type movie. I found it incredibly boring. The artistic expression in it and the symbolism completely escaped me, and I just found it a bore, you know. And I think it boils down to the story itself and the acting. It just was not engaging enough. The two lead actresses, a lady named Jill Center and Gina Eastwood, I don't know, or even this guy that picked them up, a guy named Alan Long. I don't know what they went on to do, but it was just not very good. So I can't recommend it. I give it a 3 out of 10. Now, this film is typically paired up. Now, this film was released by BCI on a DVD at one point, along with the next film I'm going to talk about, and that's 1974's film, The Teacher. Now, The Teacher is a much more interesting film, and it's about a teacher, kind of a Mrs. Robinson type character, who seduces an 18-year-old student. And the story centers around that story, that plot device, and it sounds kind of kinky and perverted, and it is, but there's nothing in the film where they really try to, through the use of nudity or sexual situations, they don't try to exploit that plot device. You've got the basic storyline of the teacher trying to seduce the 18-year-old, but it's in the end it's a pretty tame type deal. If it was remade today, it would probably be much more shocking. But it's another Crown International film that, quite honestly, could have been shown on network TV and on the Lifetime channel. It's one of those type films I could see it being shown on the damn Lifetime channel. It wasn't bad. The storyline was pretty good, but all in all, it's a pretty dull film. Now, the interesting thing about this film is Jay North, plays the 18-year-old kid in this, and he was Dennis. He was in the Dennis the Menace series. He was the kid in the Dennis the Menace series. That's probably the only real thing that came out of this watching this one. It's just kind of a ludicrous storyline. But yeah, that kind of wraps up my day 10 watches. Not a bad way to finish. I would say The Teacher's an okay one-time watch. I'll be bringing you back some more reviews and commentaries about this drive-in classic box set over the next few days. But Friday the 13th, I'm going to do something different. We'll take a break from these drive-in exploitation films and probably do a marathon Friday the 13th watch, and I'll probably video portions of that so if people have an interest in kind of watching it along with me, or excerpts of it and having me comment on it. I did that once or twice in the October Hearth challenge back in October. I'll probably do that this Friday, so stay tuned for that. Appreciate you watching. Thanks.